Hey, hi, and howdy, sweet friends. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you are new. My name is Courtney. I am a stay-at-home homeschooling mom, and here on my channel, I like to focus on food and kitchen-related content from grocery hauls to what's for dinner and various other cooking videos. So if you like that kind of content, I am your girl. Stick around, hit subscribe, drop me a comment to say hi. It is 2 days before Christmas, the day before Christmas Eve, when I am putting this video up. So I do want to take a minute to say Merry Christmas to all of my wonderful friends out there. I hope this holiday season is a magical, marvelous one for each and every one of you. This week I am featuring one pot meals. I have 3 of them. If you're like me, the holiday season is the busy season, and who needs extra dishes to wash and who needs to cook really extravagant dinners when we're focused on cooking for holiday parties and get-togethers and stuff. So these are simple, they're easy, and low mess, easy cleanup. We're going to start off with this one pot spaghetti, which was absolutely fantastic. It just kind of dresses up traditional pasta a little bit more, and I gotta say, cooking your noodles in the saucy water just really gave them this nice glossiness, this flavor that was so rich and deep, just wonderful. I started off by browning a pound of ground beef. Once that was cooked through, I add in some bell pepper and onion, and then I drain the fat after they had cooked for just a couple of minutes, and now I'm seasoning it with salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder. I'm adding in some of my confit garlic, which is like roasted garlic. If you're interested in that, I do always have that link down below in the description box. It is my favorite condiment. I make it a couple times a year because I make big batches. It's absolutely fabulous. I couldn't live without it. I just think it really tastes amazing. But I got that all mixed in and melted in, and all these flavors are coming together. And then the recipe called for Italian seasoning, but I have this spaghetti seasoning hanging out in my pantry, and I wanted to go ahead and use some of that, so I tossed that in. But I think either seasoning would be great at this point. We're just kind of flavoring this up just a little bit. Next, I wanted to add my noodles, and it called for spaghetti. It didn't say to break them, but thinking about cooking this in a one-pot dish, everything's got to fit in here. I was really worried that the noodles wouldn't stay submerged properly and I'd have a hard time getting them incorporated. So I opted to go ahead and break them, which I know is a huge no-no in the culinary world, but on this particular instance, I just felt like it was the right, way to do things. Once I had those in the pot, I went ahead and started adding in my liquids. The recipe calls for chicken broth, which, as you guys know, it's not something I keep on hand, so I'm using bouillon. And I opted to do a blend of beef and chicken bouillon for this because I think it actually gives like a richer flavor at the end of the day. If you haven't tried it, give it a shot. If you're using bouillons, just do a half and half mix of both beef and chicken, and I promise the flavor is so much deeper and richer. It really just kind of kicks it up a notch. Next, I added in a can of diced tomatoes. I didn't drain them or anything, just straight on in the pot, followed by a jar of marinara sauce. And we're going to mix this all in, and this is all of our cooking liquid. We're going to let this simmer with the lid on the stove top until the pasta is nearly done. I say that because I let it simmer until the pasta still had a really good bite to it, and there was a lot of liquid left in the pan, so I took the lid off at that point and allowed it to just simmer and cook, and some of the liquid thickened and evaporated with the starch from the pasta. You can see that's what it looks like right there after I've let it just cook uncovered for a few minutes. And the recipe called for a couple of tablespoons of cream cheese, but I had some of this Alouette herb and garlic cheese in my fridge, and I just thought, well, why not? So I stirred that in, and I would do it this way a million times over. I think that the richness and the creaminess and the flavor from that Alouette cheese was so perfect in this dish. This was packed full of flavor. It was just absolutely amazing. And it was easy to make, and it just kind of, varied a little bit from typical pasta nights where you just have the jar of red sauce and some cooked ground beef. It was just a little bit more, a little bit extra, really, really nice. And it made a huge pot of food, so we had leftovers, which was awesome. There's what it looks like. I will link this and the other 2 recipes I am featuring today down below in the description box, so you can make them at home as well. So this next recipe, a one-pot smoked sausage pasta, I definitely made with my husband in mind. One of his favorite things when he was a kid was some boxed mac and cheese mixed with some cooked smoked sausage. Not something that I grew up eating and not something that I really ever make, but this recipe was ideal for him. It's kind of like a really dressed up grown-up version of it, but it's so simple to make. Kids and adults will both love this one. I started off by adding some garlic oil to my pan. You can use regular oil or butter, whatever you have on hand is fine. I just like the extra flavor of my homemade garlic oil. To that, I added in 1 diced onion and 1 package of smoked sausage that I sliced pretty thinly. I let that cook for a few minutes, and by the way, the smell of sausage and onions cooking is absolutely amazing. If you haven't tried it, cook it just for that smell alone. It smells so good. After it cooked for a few minutes, I went ahead and added in some of my confit garlic, and I let that just kind of cook for just a minute to get its flavor, you know, all around the pan and in the party with everybody. And then the recipe called for some chicken bouillon, which, as I did in the last recipe, I'm going to do a mix of both chicken and beef because, again, I think it adds a lot of depth. I wouldn't do it for every recipe, but for a lot of them, I really do like the way it flavors everything and just kind of brings something a little bit extra to it. It's a little bit more rich, a little bit more flavor. Then I added in 2 cups of rotini pasta. You could use any kind of pasta you want. Elbows are fine, or any of them, ziti would be great. I just happen to have a box of this in my pantry, so that's what I threw in. And I like the shape. It's easy to stab with a fork, so you can get a good bite of noodles plus a piece of sausage very, very easily. I went ahead and added in my water to make the chicken broth that the recipe calls for, giving everything a nice, good stir right there, making sure that the pasta is completely submerged. Pop the lid on and I let it cook, again, just like the last dish, until the noodles are almost done but not quite. Then I removed the lid and let them simmer uncovered for a few minutes. I was letting some of that water evaporate. It's starchy water, so it's thick. It's not like just regular water, so it makes a really great sauce. You want to keep some of it in the pot. To that, I added just a drizzle of heavy whipping cream. If you didn't have that, you could always just substitute a little bit of milk. And then the recipe called for some cheese. I've got a package of shredded cheese from the grocery store. I really like this triple cheddar because I think it really offers a lot of bang for your buck. It's got some different types of cheeses in there. One of them is a sharp cheddar, so it adds a whole lot of extra volume as far as flavor is concerned. So I went ahead and tossed that bag right on in there and gave everybody a good stir. We want to let the cheese kind of melt into the liquids there and form a really rich and creamy sauce. And then if you let this sit for a couple of minutes, it really all comes together. It just needs a minute or two to just kind of relax, and that is the dish. But like I said, this is definitely elevated. It's a lot better than just boxed mac and cheese with sausage. It's got a whole lot more richness and flavor to it. Plus, one pot, super easy to make. There it is. I just served it with some garlic toast on the side because my family loves it. Super easy, super delicious, and this was so, so good. You guys have got to try this one. All right, the last meal is this one pot garlic butter orzo. This was so good. So, so good. It's just another take on chicken and rice at the end of the day, really, but it was fabulous. I'm a huge fan of orzo. I don't get to use it very often because it is kind of an odd shape and it doesn't go with everything, but it was ideal for this dish. So I've got a couple of chicken thighs there. I seasoned them and then put them seasoned side down in a pan with some oil. And now I'm going to season the other side. I feel like you can season these any way you want. I do believe the recipe just said salt and pepper, and I saw that and thought, well, no, we need more flavor than that. So I'm adding some salt and some pepper. I threw on a little thyme. I'm really into using my dried herbs right now. I don't know if it's the time of year or what, but thyme especially has really kind of moved to the forefront of my spice rack these days. I just love the flavor. I added some garlic and onion powder and of course some paprika. You guys know I'm a huge fan of paprika here on my channel. Absolutely love it. And then I cooked these chicken thighs so they got nice and brown. You don't have to worry about cooking them all the way through because they are going to simmer for a while in the pot with some liquids. We're just developing color, which is flavor. You can see I've got a nice golden brown happening on these, which is absolutely perfect. Once they have that color on both sides, go ahead and remove them from the pan for just a couple of minutes so we can get everything else situated in there. I've got a little bit of oil left in the bottom of the pan, some of the chicken grease, and that is perfect. We're going to dump in 1 pound of orzo. I'm going to just let it toast in here for a couple of minutes, kind of like when you make rice-a-roni. This extra step just gives it a little bit more flavor. I like the way it works out at the end of the day, plus it soaks up all that beautiful onion residue and everything in the bottom of the pan. Next, I added in some of my garlic. Again, I'm using confit garlic, and I was pretty heavy-handed today just because this is a garlic chicken. But you could always substitute garlic powder or fresh garlic for any of these recipes where I use my confit garlic. No worries about it if you don't have it or you're not sure how to make it. Again, it is linked down below. I'm just letting the garlic kind of melt into the pasta for just a minute. And then the recipe called for chicken broth. And this is one time where I did just stick to the chicken bouillon on this particular recipe because it was a chicken themed dish. I added in, I believe it was 4 cups of water plus the appropriate amount of bouillon. As you guys can tell, I'm really strict with my measurements right there. I'm a true believer in measuring with your heart. I very rarely pull out my measuring spoons for anything. I season quite liberally, and you know, that's just the name of the game at my house. You don't have to do it that way, but I always recommend it because I feel like you know what your family likes. We're giving that a really nice good stir just to kind of incorporate everything, and then we're placing that beautiful chicken right back into our pot. At this point, you're pretty much done, and you can pop the lid on and just let it go. However, I had a last minute thought where I was like, oh, I've got this white wine in my fridge and I just feel like it's going to brighten it up. So I tossed some in for funsies. It's not in the recipe. You don't have to do it. You could always add lemon juice instead if you want to, or just skip that step entirely. During the cooking process, you do want to check it and stir it periodically to keep the orzo from burning to the bottom of the pot. And once it's done, it looks like this. It absorbed all the liquids. So I tossed in a couple of tablespoons of butter, some freshly shredded Parmesan, and some fresh diced parsley. This is just adding a whole bunch of flavor and a nice creamy texture to this orzo right there, giving it a nice good stir and mixing that butter in, letting it melt. And this is pretty much done. You're just going to add your chicken back in if you want to, or I just serve mine with the rice on the bottom and a chicken thigh on top. You could always dice your chicken if you wanted to. Whichever way works for you is fine. This was so good. So much beautiful flavor, and I love the addition of fresh parsley. I use the dried stuff a lot, but the fresh parsley really offers something nice in there. It's really grassy and fresh and green and beautiful. I did just saute some broccoli on the side. I just took a frozen bag of broccoli, put some Italian seasoning and salt and pepper on it in a skillet with some garlic oil, and just let it cook and roast a bit. That is it for the meals this week. They were fantastic. Again, they are all listed down below. One more time, I want to take a minute to thank you for joining me and wish you all a very Merry Christmas. And I will see you guys soon with another video. Bye.